This is Ready Set Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, universal energy life force. From the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcome. We accept all lineages and all levels. So today we are going to go on a magical journey. We have a wonderful guest today. But first, I'm going to introduce myself, and my name is Tracy Searight, and I have a wonderful guide with me today. So we are both your guides in this journey of Reiki. So here is my lovely guide.
Hi, and I'm Millie Pampina, Tracy's co-guide. Thank you, Tracy.
So, as we begin this journey today, I'd like to introduce you to Ilana Sparrow. She is our guest today, and we're so excited to have her. So, Ilana is the founder of A Light Within Wellness, and that is located in one of my favorite places, Los Angeles, California. She is a Azui Holy Fire 3 Master Reiki Master, a certified intuitive healer, and an animal communicator. She holds a separate certification in animal Reiki and has always had a special connection with animals. Already love her, right? And deep understanding of animal behavior. She is passionate about Reiki and wellness and about just helping people and their animal companions achieve a healthy and vibrant life. Since childhood, she had a strong intuitive ability, which primarily manifested through clairvoyance and medical intuition. Most of her life, she turned away from these skills, confused and afraid and embracing. Instead, she earned an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business and spent many years in the entertainment and marketing business development, producing independent feature films and in communications at a major animal not-for-profit. With the onset of COVID-19, she was called to reconnect with her intuition and trained intensively with renowned psychic to bring her skills back online. And when she remotivated to become a Reiki master, then in turn, it led to a deep and profound clarity about who she is and what can she best for her in serving others. And this is how A Light Within Wellness was born. So, welcome, Ilana. We are so happy that you are here.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here.
So, you got a lot of amazing things that you have done in your life. So, we're going to just start with, tell us about yourself. So, I read this wonderful bio of you. So, just tell our listeners just a little bit more of just about who you are.
Sure. Well, I mean, you did allude to it in the bio. I have a background in business and a background in entertainment, marketing, communications, which is all well and good, but none of it was setting me up to work in the healing arts or in the intuitive space. But that is something that kind of found me. And I think that happens to a lot of people. It is something that maybe I wouldn't have realized if not for the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns, actually. But it kind of, I guess that sort of gave me a reset and gave me the time to go back and explore all these things that had always been there, but I didn't really understand or didn't know how to handle. And the truth is that I did not grow up in the kind of environment where any of this was acceptable. It was definitely frowned upon. I was in a very rationalist and scientifically based household, and no one really knew what to say or do, or it was absolutely not okay to talk about. And it definitely maybe set me back by a few decades on this journey. However, I finally got there, so that's exciting.
And that's great. We're so glad that you are finally here. So, and here on Ready Set Reiki, of course. So when did Reiki come into your life?
Okay, that actually goes back many, many years ago. When I was in my early 20s, I had a wrist injury that was sort of an ongoing come and go. It was a varsity volleyball injury from high school. And I had met someone who was a friend who was a Reiki practitioner, but didn't teach, she was an artist. That's how she made her money. But we were hanging out. My wrist was flared up and she's like, "Oh, let me do this to you. I'm a Reiki healer. I can do this. I can fix it." And I'm like, "What is that? And how does that work?" And she's like, let me do this. And she puts her hands on and, it gets really hot and all that happened. And I was just blown away because it healed the injury. This was an injury that I'd had, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years coming and going, and it never came back. One time, I want to say maybe 15 minutes. And I was like, wow, what is this? So cool. But then, she's from Brazil and she was this really cool exotic person. And I'm like, oh, well, that can't be me. I just didn't even think after that. That was my first introduction to it though. And it did work. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I did nothing with all that knowledge for many, many years. But I did have a lot of, psychic abilities like clairvoyance and clair empathy and clairsentience and and the medical intuition, which just people that knew me would just be like, wow, it's really cool. You just always can tell, and I didn't really understand what it was. Just that was just sort of in my life. And then when I started to train with a actual like psychic whose expertise is actually training law enforcement. She does a lot of missing persons and got sick and tired of having to always do the missing persons herself. So she decided to start to train people in how to develop their intuition, like detectives and police departments. And we were friends from horseback riding together. So we started to just play around and work together at the barn. And then it just escalated from there. But that really, everything blew open with that. I think she knew, I think she saw that was all there. Sure. And just started to help me just in terms of my riding and how I was connecting with horses. And then it just kind of went snowballed. Yeah. And that was, thank God for that, because if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have really ever realized that I could do hands-on healing, which I kind of just discovered on my own before I was trained and, all this stuff. But that was all related, obviously.
Right. That's just interesting that she was kind of teaching you without you really knowing. So
yeah, I mean, then we started that way, and then I actually like literally signed on like to train with her.
Right.
Which is really awesome. I don't think at the time I didn't have any grand plans of anything. I just thought, wow, this is really cool. But then, like I said, it just sort of opened everything up. And it's funny because she's not a healer. I mean, she works as an intuitive, right? She does readings and she trains people, but like it opened me up to healing, which was not something that I saw coming.
Right. But she might have.
She might have.
So our next question is, in this wonderful field of Reiki, what are some common misperceptions about your work?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it doesn't help that, right? I'm out in LA, which is like the land of, Reiki flaky and all kinds of spiritual, or I want to say almost faux spiritual. There's a lot of that out here.
A lot of it, yeah.
A lot of that. I was in the entertainment business myself. I would see that all the time. And I feel like people, it doesn't help our profession, some of that stuff that's out there. But there's a lot of misconceptions with that it's all in people's minds, that it's a placebo effect, that, well, science can't explain it, therefore it can't be real. Or, I think there's a lot of resistance from people. It's from their programming. Like 100%, I believe that, that people, when they sort of slowly soften and open up to it, they'll get there.
Right.
Eventually. And I definitely think that people don't think it can really help. And they don't or they think, oh, if you really can fix this, you will fix it 10 minutes and I'm done, and I don't have to do anything, and I don't have to be a part of it.
Right.
And we all know that's not true.
Right. They don't realize it's cumulative. They want instant results.
Or, whatever they're dealing with may have I always look at it like an onion, and it's layers and layers and layers. And so depending, if somebody comes in with one quick thing, sure, it may just be one session, or they just want to relax, or they have a little anxiety, fine, that's easy. That's not necessarily an ongoing thing. But with a lot of people, it could be bigger life issues causing anxiety or depression, or people having a chronic injury or illness, which again, we know there's a mind, body, spirit connection to that. They don't look at it that way. They're looking at it just with, through the lens of the Western medicine world. And so they have to heal themselves, right? We're holding space. We're channelers. That's really what I've sort of learned is we're really good when we're really good at stepping back, stepping out,
Mhm.
holding that space and bringing the energy in, and then helping them work with the energy.
Right, right, right. Perfect, perfect. So, what do you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
Wow. I sure wish my younger self had gone off exploring all of this when I first had that amazing Reiki gift and I was
Right.
20. I mean, gosh, I don't even know where I'd be right now with all of that. But
Right.
that everyone has their own path. And obviously my path, I do believe, was to kind of try all these different things to know what I'm not in order
Mhm.
to know what I am.
Right.
And for sure, when all this hit with the intuitive training and then the healing and then learning Reiki, and I really only went into all the Reiki because I was like, wow, I can do this cool healing thing. What the heck am I doing? Oh my gosh, and I
Right.
needed like a framework. And Reiki really gave me that, and then so much more. But I think hopefully I would have found this, sooner. Or at least understood what my gifts were.
For sure.
And one of my big things with helping people on their healing journey, and I mean ultimately with helping people, like teaching people, is really helping them understand how they work in the intuitive space
Hmm.
and what intuition is, and what how that factors into their lives, like on so many levels. And even for Reiki people, I do think understanding their intuition and working within the session with that is
Hmm.
so important.
Right.
Because
Right.
I mean, you could obviously say expect the Reiki to flow and the Reiki is going to do what it's going to do, but you can probably really profoundly up the abilities to affect change with them when you're bringing all of those skills into it. And for them, right, teaching them how to understand. And that's a
Right.
huge part of what I do. Is like so stupid, but I'm always kind of like, well, you know I'll have people come for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever, but my goal is that they don't need me.
Right.
Like, I believe I'll get the next person that needs me, you know what I mean?
For
Like,
sure.
that's
For
fine.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Well, what is something everybody in this industry should stop doing?
Wow. I should stop doing.
Stop doing.
Well, it would be nice if there was, less competition and
Hmm.
more support. And I feel like sometimes that can happen with different lineages.
Hmm.
Like if you've trained not with the ICRT and you've got this sort of traditional physical attunements, you might like bash the way that we do things at the International Center for Reiki Training, with the fact that we do, our ignitions, and we can do it over distance and we don't have to physically do things.
Hmm.
And we now have gotten to a place where we can, help people expand without our own energy being in that, right?
Hmm.
But I feel like sometimes people look at that negatively, and I'm like, no, no, no. I mean, we're all good, right? Because
Right.
all of it's energy work. All of it is the same fundamental idea of connecting to source. And
Correct. Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wish the people we would just be more supporting. There's room for everyone, and we just need more people to do Reiki, and everyone's gonna have their own unique talents and their own gifts, and there's that student exactly perfect for you that's going to come and say, you know what, you have exactly what I need. And I tell my students, you can line all 10 of us up, and each of us are going to be unique and wonderful, and we're not doing it wrong. That's our intention. So if that intention is pure, it's all good. I
I
had a woman once put on Facebook to me that you can't do this distance wise. And I'm like, well, you can pray, right? How do you know when my prayer is being taken up to heaven and listened to? So um, everybody will have different opinions.
Right. And it's funny actually that you mentioned that, because prayer, right? And a lot of what we were doing with intention, or so much of what goes into the Reiki thing. Yeah, of course it's super, super similar, but people can accept going to a church or
Hmm.
temple and praying, and then,
Yes.
they can't accept what we're doing. And yet,
Right.
like, well, but I don't, it's very similar in certain aspects.
Right. But you can hold the rosary beads or you can hold the mala beads and you can say the prayers so many times and do all the rituals. but then there can't be the understanding of
Well,
this.
that's the thing is that actually you really hit on something huge about like when you people only go into ritual and they're not
Mhm.
really truly embodying
Mhm.
and letting those things actually come into them, right? And
Right.
working with it. And they think that the rituals are like what's creating the magic when that's not true at all. And
Right.
so, and then I get really, I mean, don't get me started with some of that stuff because I can go all
Well,
day.
yeah, right, because you look at kind of the attunements with a Zooey and you're doing all the different movings and the parts to it, a lot of things to it, and then you're looking at Holy Fire and it's the simplicity of you're there, the practitioner, that the master teacher's out of the way, right? And guiding it, and then it's doing what it needs to do.
Exactly.
So
It's
our
different
energy is
for
not mixed
everyone,
up in the
right?
process.
Yeah.
And it's hard for some people to, well, how's that going to work? You have to just trust the process. That's
Well, I've definitely noticed a difference for myself and how I work between when I didn't have Holy Fire and then once I had Holy Fire. Like,
Mhm.
it actually kind of changed the way that energy felt in
For
me.
sure.
And
Yeah.
it changed how I like it. It's just when you said refined, like it's definitely more refined.
Well,
Like
I just think for myself, being an empath,
Mhm.
I felt that on such a different level more than the Azui. I got such physical reactions, like the back of my neck, lower back, heated up. I would, even if I knew I was going to get that ignition that day, or if I was going to go work on a client, my body would start heating up.
Right.
So it just was a game changer for me. So,
Yeah, I don't know, I had a very strong physical reaction to the in-person attunements, which is
okay.
funny. And I had an unbelievably kind of like clairsentient, clairvoyant reaction with the
Okay.
ignition. So
Okay.
again, different with everybody, but not and you don't lose it. You have all of it, right?
Right.
It
Right.
just you have different skills and different
Yes.
ways that you can
Yeah.
work with people.
Right.
And
Right.
just like when you approach a session with a new client, like if you're in your intuitive space, you're going to be guided to do different things with different people. It's not even the same person on a different day. Maybe they may need different things.
Right.
They may need
Right.
a Reiki guided experience, or they may need you to like let your intuition lead in terms of where your hand positions are going to be. And,
Right. Right.
all of these things. Now, I don't just do Reiki, I actually blend it with, because we talked about the advanced intuitive healing. So
Sure.
I studied intuitive healing for a while.
Mhm.
And that was again another game changer because that the way that I works completely complementary with Reiki. Like
Wonderful.
you can alternate, you can mix and match, there's never anything, which again, going back to competition, there never needs to be this competition because we can all work
Sure.
together and do these things. And it makes every healer kind of find their own blend that works
Oh,
with
for sure. Yeah.
so
Yeah. And there's no, like I said, there's no wrong way to do it. If you want to add the tuning forks or the sound bowls or add what you want in it to make it yours.
yes,
But at the end of the day, it's the simplicity of the Reiki. So if
yes,
you don't use anything at all, if you don't even feel like adding chakras and the meridians and aura bodies, you just want to just simply come in and just lay hands, that's perfectly fine. It's your intention.
right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And I always encourage people, to listen to themselves and like what they're drawn to, because that's a big part of it, right?
Right, right.
I have my own beliefs about why I kind of went like 0 to 100 with all of this, which is it was almost, I do believe in past lives,
Mhm.
and I've done this like so many times. I've done this, I don't know, in so many different cultures and so many times. It was like it just
Right,
was like, oh, haha, you know how to do this already. And
right,
I do.
right.
And I've seen enough visions with that to know. And I have, like intuitive friends that have seen that with me. And I'm like, okay, well, it's like just
Right.
about bringing that all online.
Right, right, right. And when I've had people say to me, like, well, you've only been practicing or teaching this for so long, I'm like, but look, the short span of Dr. Azui, 4 years. When you really count up the years that Jesus was teaching, it wasn't that long, right? So I
Right.
don't think the concept of time really has a kind of a factor in this. Like I feel like I've been doing this since Atlantis, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Because
there
we
were
have.
just things as I began to learn. I'm like, wait a
And
minute, I think I've been doing this my whole life. And one of the trainings, there was a symbol I saw, and I'm like, wait, I used to draw that as a kid on things as I doodled.
oh
So,
yeah,
you're just getting a
wow.
name to it. So, a lot of people that come to me for the trainings, I'll ask them, and it's just a determination how long it should take if they wanted to upgrade to a different level. And so there's those classic questions like, I feel like I've been doing this my whole life, and these things look so familiar, and I've had dreams, and I've been guided. So there's clues. So,
Yeah. Our internet connection just became unstable.
oh,
I
it's
don't
all
know.
right. I got you. We see
Yeah,
you.
you got it. Okay, good. So
All
yeah,
right.
no, I agree with you, and I think that's probably true for a lot of people that just jump right into this.
For
It's
sure. And that's
activating.
fine. They have a passion and a calling for it. Yeah. So
Even
just,
though, like me, you ran off to the business world and entertain, you didn't know, but at the same time, like, and I will say this, like, I didn't know I was an empath until, because like when you're a kid, right,
mhm.
you're born this way, you're coming in with all these
Yeah.
things. And if you don't know, because no one around you knows or understands or shuts it down or whatever, it's a really hard world to navigate, particularly like I
It
lived
is.
in New York City, like good luck with being an empath in New York City.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It was
Yes.
awful. It was
Yeah.
awful. And I
A lot
mean,
going on there. It's an electric city.
and you're always with people, hundreds of
Mhm.
people on a subway and
Yes.
crowd in the sidewalk and in an elevator. Oh my God. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a reason why I'm happy in LA. Because we got nature.
You got nature and you have escapes for it. Yes.
Um, but at the same time, if you have your tools and you recognize what you are, you can live in New York City. Like now,
Sure.
I won't be thrown off in New York City because
Right.
I know what to do.
Right. You can
But
find your little sanctuaries, places to reset.
and teach my clients this all the time
Mhm.
because I definitely find that a lot of people coming to Reiki healers or any intuitive healing. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yep.
good.
All right. So our next question is, what are some qualities that you look for in a Reiki practitioner?
Um,
What are some of the qualities you look for in a Reiki practitioner when it's time for you to go get kind of a tune up?
I definitely look for people who are authentic, ego out of what they do. I find in LA, so I try not to, I don't want people to judge based on, how many celebrity clients they have or whatever.
Mhm.
That's big out here with
Of
this.
course. Oh, I know that. Yeah.
And it's like, actually, if anything, that might make me run the other direction, to be honest.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I've been
I'm
in
not so sure they know.
different Reiki shares and Reiki classes in online, and there all of a sudden pops up someone who's a celebrity, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And
Right. I mean,
yeah,
I work with them so much, like in terms of celebrities and know so many, they're just people, but
right.
they
Of
are
course.
no better spiritual seekers than we are. And so, if anything, like I said, they tend to be like drawn to the next cool thing, but that doesn't mean that that person's like qualified.
Right,
I mean, the
right.
proof is in the pudding. Are they getting results? Are people, I mean, word of mouth referral? You can look at their training and their background, but like I said, there are people who can do all of this without any training as
Right,
well.
right,
you
right,
know I think if you're going
right.
to do it professionally, you should have the training, and I'm a huge proponent of the ICRT and
Hmm.
their classes because it's a framework that is consistent,
Hmm.
and they are so strict with like the teachers that they license. and
Correct.
the amount of work that they have to go to, so you know what you're getting. So
Hmm.
I think that is something to look for. I definitely would recommend that, but it doesn't
Right.
mean that, if someone doesn't have it, that they aren't any good. It's
Right, right. And you'll be
better.
called to go to exactly where you need to go. So whether going that path or someone locally or someone you find online. So it's what
Right,
resonates with them.
right,
Yes.
right. I think I have had some very strange, random ways that people have found me. Like, I mean, crazy stuff where you're
For
just
sure.
like, there is no way that anyone could have found me. Like, the universe sent you to me. Like, I mean, it's just
Right,
crazy for words. And it's like, all right, well, this had, I know they're supposed to come, and I know
right,
they need to come to me, you know.
right,
And
right.
so that's kind of why I don't really, I mean, I should probably market myself more, but I don't, because I kind of feel like the people that need me find me.
Hmm. That's what we were just talking about with our previous guest, that, some of the best practitioners are ones that, you know, it's like hard to find them because they're not out there displaying and showing things. So word of mouth and just stumbling upon it. So yes, the right student's going to come and find you, and you're going to have exactly what they need. So all divine intervention.
I agree with that, and for me, I would definitely, you know, I would love having more clients. It's not that I
Sure.
didn't. And I actually have been called to start teaching, which is funny because that was not something, again, initially that I set out
That
to.
seems most people. They sign up for one just because they're curious, or someone in their family did it, or they just want to learn and do themselves and family, and then they just something shifts, and before
Well,
you
I
know
think
it.
it shifts, and I really do think with me, it's this. It's like I'm constantly getting people, not just clients, but like friends or friends of
Mhm.
friends, like asking for help or asking questions, or they're curious. And it's like, well, if you open up to teaching and you have a
Right.
class, you will help more people, and you can
Yes.
make it more affordable because it's not like a one-on-one, so you don't have to charge
Right.
for money.
Hmm.
I've done like group Reiki experiences, and that's been really great also, because once again, hitting more people, getting more
Right.
people help that they might need, or inspiring them, to learn Reiki. So I definitely, even though I was resisting it, I'm not really anymore. Just
Right, right, right. Yeah, and Millie and I think I can speak for Millie on this one. When we began our first step in this journey, we weren't looking to teach. So, I came to it for grief, just kind of with everything. I was, kind of exhausting everything else. And this was kind of like, okay, maybe I should just try this now. But I never thought all those years ago today that I would be teaching it. So you never
or
know.
with a
You never
podcast
know.
about it.
Right. When you feel
No, I know.
called, you
But your
go for it.
podcast is getting the word out more. And I think that, and that's actually the biggest thing. But when you say, like, what would you like with the industry? I want, if everybody had Reiki, we would be a much more loving
Right.
and happy
Right.
society. And I
Right.
feel that in 2023 now, we are so disconnected. Like, it's
Hmm.
actually worse than ever, really,
Right.
in terms of, the average person that doesn't have these tools or this knowledge, and
Hmm.
feeling a real malaise or depression or anxiety, or
Right.
kids today. Oh my gosh, like, I have a high school age son. Like, it's a mess for kids.
Right. Right.
And all of these tools could help anyone. They don't have to practice it, they don't have to be
Right.
a healer, but
Right. And it
just
could be as simple as being on the freeway, traffic's backed up, you're pausing and just placing your hands on your heart and just giving yourself just a little bit of that, just to change the whole body and just bring that calm and
bring it
peace in,
in.
to
Yeah.
pause and just reset. And it doesn't have to be this elaborate, I have to lay down on a healing table. It can be, as simple as in the parking lot, or when you're in traffic, when you're at that red light. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I use it, I use it throughout the day.
Hmm.
Like, and I have, one of my horses, he was a rodeo team roper, like, that wasn't well treated, like, from a sort of not so great background. And I got him thinking, oh, well, I'm going to get him out of that and I'll retrain him. He was young. And as it turns out, he's such a sensitive creature. I mean, like,
Right.
beyond any level of sensitivity that I'm used to. I've known a
Right.
few horses like that, but definitely not one of mine. And in order to work with him and really help him and connect with him, I've had to do unbelievable amounts of work on myself to be able to. He's half Appaloosa, so that's a tough breed if you know anything about
Yeah.
horses. They are very, and he's half Andalusian, but they're also very sensitive. But Appies are very stubborn and opinionated, and they're kind of almost a little more wild than a lot of other breeds. They have a stronger survival instinct. They're kind of more like a mule. And so same if you're trying to train mules, same thing. You would have to really earn their trust, and you know, it's a two-way street with that. So with the energy work, like you have to know where you're at. I mean, horses and all animals, especially horses, are so sensitive to energy.
Right.
That's why people use them a lot in healing programs. But horses, I mean, that's a whole other thing, but I think that horses don't, you know, I think there are horses that want to help heal, horses that don't.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't think that horses get asked very much what they really want to be doing with their time.
Right. Yeah, and Pamela Allen LeBlanc, we both taken her course, and I recall like she told a story about how she was in a situation where she showed up somewhere the horse was not in the best condition. She spoke to the horse because she is an animal communicator and said, "I'm going to get you out of here." And she said the horse told her to mind her own business. You know, he knew what he was signed up for. He knew that contract, but and she had to respect that even though she knew as a human that it wasn't a great condition, but the horse was fine with that. So we wouldn't even think to do that. And then someone had made a comment about, you know, animals that are on the road and who got like roadkill taken out, and she said, you know, pause, don't always be sad. That animal may have chosen like, I'm done, and this might be the, I'm tired of being a raccoon, so what's the quickest way out of here, and be taken out that way. So she really changed my whole perspective of, my goodness, that's a whole other side to that.
You never, you don't know, you can't assume. And again, that's going back to ego, right? And taking
Yes.
out of it. I definitely, I mean, with horses, it's hard for me because as an empath, I feel, you know, their pain or their anxiety or their confusion or their stress. And going to barns, it's, you know, you see a lot of stuff, you're like, oh my God. Like, and then I'm like, well, you know, if I don't like it, then the best thing I can do is to model that relationship that I do like with my own horses. So, you know, if I can show that, you know, people, you know, there can be these, like I work a lot with liberty, like where the horse is loose or free, and, you know, even riding without tack or just like the halter.
Right.
You know, you can get to that, I think, with almost any horse if you really connect and you really have that mutual trust and that relationship. But I think, why do I like that? Because the horse is choosing to be there with you, you know? And I think, unfortunately, with harsh bits and spurs and whatever other equipment, you're not really giving the horse any choice.
Right.
You know, even though, to your point and Pam's point, and I've heard her say that same story, that, you know, the horse probably knows what it's in, it's signed on for, but it doesn't make it any easier as an outsider feeling that.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So it does. It's hard. It is hard for me. Same with dogs. Oh my God. You know, you're walking your dogs and you see people that just have a very strange system of beliefs around why their dog is doing what it's doing, or, you know, it's explaining it away in whatever terms. And it's just kind of like, well, okay, but your dog is picking up on your anxiety or your this and your, you know what I mean? They're reflecting you, but you would never think to work on yourself.
Yeah. Not even a thought.
Nope. It's always the animal's fault. Yeah. So I mean,
our next question is, what advice would you give to someone who's just entering this profession? You've been on this journey for a while now. So what's some advice you'd give?
Definitely to, you know, take different classes, and it's like a tasting menu of things, and see what resonates, because there's so many different directions you can go with. If it's Reiki, then I'm a big proponent of taking ICRT trainings. William Lee Rand, you know, runs the ICRT. He's really a profound healer, and again, no ego there. People, I've heard that his classes are so intense that sometimes people like actually get physically ill because the cleansing and the detoxing,
I've
like
heard that as well. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of nuts. But I can see how that happens, but he's the real deal. And he is careful to only, license people and have people teach like using their manuals. And it's sort of a framework that is consistent that I really like. I think Reiki is a great, I call it the gateway drug for all of the intuitive work that you can do. Because, there's shamanic healing, there's different forms of energy work, there is being an intuitive reader, there is being an intuitive healer, there is being, so many different modalities. Tarot cards, which also can be healing, right? So many different ways to do this. And I find that people, they don't really know where they fit in until they sort of start. They need to develop their intuition, understand themselves, and work on healing. I mean, for all of these things, if you don't heal yourself and constantly be on that healing journey, knowing that you'll never ever be quote unquote healed,
Right.
that maybe, not even when you die necessarily. So you've got to just kind of be open and accepting of that fact.
Right.
And embrace the journey.
Right. Right. And also practicing. People need to just practice. It needs to become a habit. We're so quick to get bad habits, right?
Yeah.
This is a good habit.
I think you do fall in love with it. Like if you're really like called to Reiki, you're going to be doing it every day. You shouldn't have to go, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock. I haven't done my Reiki yet.
Right.
Like, you're do it. If you're going to wake up in the morning, it's going to like be a nice way to start your day.
Right.
You're going to like go to sleep at night and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do some Reiki and some clearing. Like you just know, because it works. And you also know how it feels when you don't use it. Because you have these tools, like your life is it's not that you don't have struggle or pain or so, you do, but you have this framework that you can help yourself navigate this. And it definitely makes things just way more manageable and kind of almost more magical.
Right. Speaking of magical, are there any archangels that you resonate with, or do you have like a go-to archangel?
Well, I've always been drawn to St. Francis, obviously, because of animals. But I don't usually work with them in what I do. Instead, I work with, so I have guides. And so some people definitely, they work with archangels or they have their own guides. I work with a healing master and a psychic surgeon that I bring into most sessions that, depending on what's needed or whatever, but, and I work with them on myself, like all the time. And I also just kind of have, I don't know, I guess connecting to, in general, like as we talk about with Reiki training, I guess on the master level, like ascended masters and, the brothers and sisters of the light, like bringing that in. But yeah, I think that again, that's an individual thing and everybody has theirs. Do you guys have particular ones?
We do, but I'm curious. You said psychic surgeon, correct?
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, so we this isn't quite Reiki, but and I'm blending it with Reiki.
Yes.
I work with I guess if we're really getting all philosophical and deep, okay, and I don't know, but this is sort of stuff that's out there. If you read, like, say, Paul Selig's books or other channelers, we are all divine. We are all expressions of source or of a divine being. And so we're all learning and growing and having our journeys, that is different iterations of the same kind of thing, which is why we are all connected, which frankly makes sense because that's why distance Reiki works. That's why any kind of, animal communication, whatever works. But okay, leaving that all aside, I have and I guess it's sort of how I work with it, this picture of this man who's a psychic surgeon. He has a name and I know what he looks like. And usually when I just meditate, I bring him into my body. And then I bring him through me into whoever I'm working on, or if it's distance, to the same concept. And he essentially is like a person who was a doctor, when he was,
Right.
and he is now working as in spirit with, in my case, he works with me. I don't know if he works with
Right.
other people too. I don't know. I don't ask. But
Right. Right.
he
I
comes
think I've
in and
seen
he
this
can.
before. Right.
I have a crazy experience, like someone that had a riding accident at the barn and had injured their hips. Like I think it was pretty much like a refracture, or someone who had had a hip injury refracture. I happened to be there, and I was like, all right, let's do this. Like it was kind of one of those emergency situations, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm just gonna go with bringing this guy in like right away. And she felt that as if someone was just sort of fusing her bones back together.
Interesting.
Just this crazy feeling as if someone was stitching it all up and fixing it. And then like, she couldn't walk, and then she could walk.
Hmm.
So could Reiki alone have done it? Maybe. I don't know. That's hard to say
Right.
because particular instance, I brought that in, but that
Yes.
guy would be exactly the kind of, that's when you would use someone like that, or you would use that, someone has a wrist injury or somebody has, like sort of physical stuff going on. And then the healing master is more like come in and clear the energetic channels, the subtle energy channels, clear and spin the chakras, look for holes in the aura, repair the aura. So I do usually, depending what they need, that I almost always do in a session.
Right. Right.
So, and I'm really, oh gosh, when you asked about advice, a big thing that I forgot, study the chakra system.
Yeah.
Understand that. That is, is in part of Reiki training, but it's not like enough time to really get into all of
Right.
that.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I feel like every single Reiki practitioner should study and understand how that works. And that's like a whole huge amount. That's easy to
Right.
say, and it's a lifetime of study, but
Well, right.
but it definitely helps because that gives you so much more information and tools, right?
Right. You're arming yourself with knowledge.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
speaking of that, what are some books that you recommend?
Okay, well, I just mentioned Paul Selig.
Right.
So I do like his books. You have to really be open to that and really like that. They're pretty esoteric and out there, right? They're channeled from source. He's a channel.
Sure.
And they're really all about like finding like, I know who I am, I know what I am, and I know how to serve, right? And really getting in touch with, I guess, your divine self. It's pretty simple, but there is a lot of layers to that. You kind of, I mean, for me, I have to go really slow and really think about it as I go, but I found it really pretty eye-opening. And then Cindy Dale, she's a pretty well-known author. She has like this massive book. I don't know, it's like maybe like 8 inches thick or something on
Yeah.
the chakra system. I mean, it's kind of like everything you could ever want to know about chakras. I mean, she's written multiple books, but her big guide to chakras is kind of like a Bible of that.
Okay.
I think that everyone should have a copy of that and to read it. It's really, really fascinating and helpful. So just in terms of doing your own self-study on that is
Right.
helpful. Yeah.
Perfect. And so this is our last question. So tell us about what the services that you offer and where can we find you?
So my business is called A Light Within Wellness. So I have alightwithinwellness.com. It's my website, and people can look at, my offerings and there's an email, and they can text me or call me for appointments. I have not actually gotten around to figuring out an online booking system, which I really need to do.
Yeah.
But it's like I get like, honestly, I get like decision paralysis with this stuff. Like, oh my God, there's this system and that system, and I haven't figured out which one I'm going to use. But
Well, it's kind of interesting because we've been blessed to interview, quite a bit of people, and a lot of them surprisingly don't have a web page or a booking system. They simply they'll come on and they'll give us a phone number and text or an email. So don't feel too bad. So
that's good to know, because I mean, I can give you a phone number, and people are welcome to text.
Well, they can, just your web page. But what other services do you offer? Like, let us all know.
Well, yeah. So I do, straight Reiki sessions. I do in person and I do distance. If it's in person, it's usually give or take an hour. Usually goes over though, because there's people with questions, and I like to, if they're new, I like to explain, what to expect. If it's distance, I do both a half hour or hour. And I mean, sometimes if someone wants 2 hours, that's fine too. I think that's a bit much, but sometimes we do an hour and a half. Sometimes we do 2 hours. just depends on what the need is. And then I work on animals. So same thing, animals in person or distance. I prefer distance, honestly, with animals. I find it actually a lot easier for them and for me.
Right, right.
Because, you don't really need more than 30 minutes for an animal, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But it could go over if you're trying to help the person, the animal, I hate the word owner, but whatever.
Yeah, caretaker.
The
So yeah, because
caretaker.
they're very
Um,
mindful in the animal Reiki trainer that there's
yeah,
no dominance over
no,
animals.
but
So yeah,
usually there it's not just working on them, right? Like
yeah.
there's usually more to it than that. And so it helps to, give and take with that as well.
Sure, sure. That's, I mean,
Personally,
often, because you're able to, for our viewers that don't know, animal Reiki is used for people as well. So the way that it's structured is you can do these experiences with the owner as well. And it's a wonderful and beautiful bonding experience,
yeah.
for the animal and the person. So yeah.
And it's a really good thing to do, I think, together.
Yeah.
I mean, I mix it into my Reiki work. So I haven't actually like sort of done a subcategory of just hire me for communication, but
Yes.
I can do readings. I do readings. And usually what happens is I do it, in concert with the Reiki, because
Yes.
it is very helpful.
Right.
You can say, hey, this, and this going on, and let's do some Reiki,
Right, right.
So, and the animal communication, I mean, it's another related skill set. It's again, why, it's one thing to know it, it's another to take that knowledge and help them heal.
Hmm.
So that's why I kind of included it. I mean, I've studied animal communication with several different people, but I was always getting it. I mean, that's the thing with Reiki. If you're, even just with regular Reiki, even before animal Reiki, like I would hear them, I would know things.
Right.
So really learning how to understand how animals might communicate with you, and then understanding how you work intuitively so that you get the messages.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that was our last question and of our Ready Set Reiki journey. So as I'm going to pass you over to our other guide. So Millie Pampina is going to guide us the rest of the way on our journey. So thank you so much for answering the question. So Millie, it's all yours.
Oops. Millie, I think you're the mute.
Okay, there we go. Now I'm back. Alana, I think you have just resonated with my dogs because they are all here sound asleep.
Sweethearts.
Usually is they love Reiki. They have been attuned. And I have to say, when you talk about the animal Reiki and, just the whole process of that and bringing in the animal kingdom and, what I really enjoyed about that also myself was the abundance. And I just had mentioned to somebody, they said, oh, maybe I need to get that, you know, take that class and get that attunement. And I said, just be careful what you wish for, because it's going to start coming and you're going to start, really enjoying it. I said, so it's a great process. And congratulations that, not only were you engaged in this for yourself and what you felt you might be doing. I loved your statement about when we asked, what would you have, wished your younger self knew? And you said, well, and I want to make sure I get this correct because I love this. You said, knowing what I'm not versus knowing what I am. And, that's great because, when you look at the void or the negative, the opening, you filled it, you filled it with what you are, and probably in a better time and more mature manner. So that's, I love what you're doing, and thank you
Thank you.
so much for your time. Now, our questions come from um, our social media group, and Tracy goes in and she kind of boils them down for you and selects 3, which we send you ahead of time because we don't want to surprise you with anything. And our first one that we have today was, what does healing mean to you?
Right.
So specifically, what does healing mean to you?
Well, I think it was something I didn't give that much thought to when I was younger, but now obviously it's something I think about all the time. And I did allude to this earlier. I think that we are never done healing. So healing is a process of learning and releasing and expanding and growing. And healing, we tend to myopically look at it through the lens of Western medicine. I'm sick and now I'm better, I have cancer and now I'm cured, or whatever. But it's a lot more complicated than that, because we have so many things going on energetically in our system that may turn into something physically bad, or it may not be. And depending on what we do with our time, on the day to day, in terms of understanding how we are, the messages that we're getting intuitively from our subconscious, in terms of understanding how we can release things so that they don't create ultimately, a heart condition or cancer or whatever. There are things that so healing is kind of having a journey, an ongoing process. And sick, going toward wellness, of course, but that's part of sort of a bigger picture, mind, body, spirit, bringing that together so that you can really like operate with all of those systems.
Wow,
That
thank
answers the
you.
question.
Yeah. No, I again, I always tell people here, there's no right or wrong answers. You don't get scored. The whole goal of what we do is to bring, others and their philosophies and their knowledge and their experience into this for everybody to share.
Right.
So, you're not thinking you're sitting out there thinking you're all alone and doing it wrong. No, no, no,
Right.
no.
Right.
So, and
Well,
I,
that is healing to me, and it's helping people really get in touch with themselves so that they live, happier, healthier lives, but like by definition on all of those levels, right? Like being able to understand how their systems are working. I think a lot of what we see right now with people, it's actually like spiritual in nature.
Mhm.
When we're looking at anxiety or depression or midlife crises or malaise of some kind, there is a component that and what does Western medicine not look at?
Mhm.
you know
Absolutely. That's, part of the things, and we've talked about this on various episodes. Um, podcast is, what not only brought Tracy and I to this, but what brings others to this. And the episodes can be many and varied, but they all seem to have a similar underlying, structure there. And that's what's been very comforting for me. And I apologize, I'm sitting here in the dark. I started by sitting by a great big sunny window, and it looks like Armageddon out there
oh no.
now. And I'm trying to adjust the lighting that I have without getting up and turning all the overheads on. So I apologize. I'm not sitting here in the dark because of anything personal. But my son disappeared, and I love to sit by this window, particularly when we do this, so I can enjoy that. But the next question we have is, which non-invasive healing strategies do you frequently employ?
Yes. So I definitely, I work with obviously Reiki energy, which is non-invasive, if you will, I guess. It's just working on the energetic level. Holy fire, energy is my go-to. Animal Reiki energy also. I know Tracy mentioned how the animal Reiki symbol is useful not just for animals, but for people. And actually that one in particular is really good for grounding. And I definitely like to bring that into human sessions, not just animal sessions, because a lot of people these days seem very ungrounded. And so I like that one. And then I do, like I said, I have guides, psychic surgeon and healing master and other guides, and I bring them in, and that would also, I guess, be considered non-invasive and very effective.
What you can't see is I have somebody who's getting see, now that the discussions are starting to wind down, they're starting to wander around here, wanting my
That's
attention.
funny because my dogs are also, they just started wandering around and scratching and stuff. So they must know they're connecting.
And this one has a big, very large cold nose that he's pushing my arm up with. So, but and thank you. I had never heard the term psychic surgeon, and I just thought that was fantastic. I will give you full credit for it, but I do plan to try to incorporate that in some of my discussions.
Yeah, well, you can look up, there's some stuff I think probably online. I know when I was trained about psychic surgeons, there was a healer, an American healer that went to the Philippines,
Mhm.
and they had, local healers there that were working basically as psychic surgeons themselves, almost like they were using, I wanted to say, their own energy, and then they were dying young because, as you can imagine, like things were getting in and sticking and whatever. So the idea of having like the external sort of spirit form working with you in that way, it's a way to still have the same effect, but not have it, coming from my energy, so that it's like going in, causing me sickness and harm.
Yeah, protecting the
So
physical body. Sure.
yeah.
Look that I definitely made a big note of that here. Also, with regards to that, our third question, Ilana, has been, what could spiritual work do to booster community connections?
So yeah, to help community connections, I would say, without a doubt, and you guys obviously know this, and anyone that studied Reiki, I mean, Reiki opens your heart, and Reiki, by definition, you have more compassion and more love and more understanding. So, I mean, it is my hope as we spread the light of Reiki, that more and more people can, see themselves in others, or see that common, divine source, whatever you want to call it, that we all share, and have more understanding for different perspectives and differences, and, and be more willing to help and, step forward. So I do think I actually think that's probably one of the biggest problems facing our country right now, honestly. And I don't necessarily think that organized religion's the answer to that either. There's plenty of amazing groups that do good work, but there's others that's almost like it's toxic. So it doesn't, if people can do this on an individual level by opening their hearts, and having more compassion, and less differences. And I always say the other big thing, I mean, really, we're living in a world of duality. We're living with love and fear, right? And they're like kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. So every time you have fear, and people can have a lot of fear these days, right? They need to look at that fear and like really like lean into that. And why do you have that? And what does it mean? And then how are you going to get to love on that? So anyway.
Oh, that's very profound and very, very enlightening. So I hope that those who are listening can also think that through, and compare that to what's going on in their communities, local communities, and as they spread out, because we in Reiki, we work on a global perspective. And I like to think every day that I'm sending I'm sending something good out into the world, and it's somebody is receptive to receiving it. So thank you very much for that insight. Well, that's the last question that we have from social media. And I don't know, Tracy, if you had anything else for
Ilana, I
Alana.
just want to thank you for being our guest today on Ready Set Reiki. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the listeners today?
No, I hope if anybody's inspired that they're, feel free to look me up. They don't have to live in LA, because I do distance, and hopefully I'll start teaching this year as well. And if they need help with animals, I love doing that work. But yeah, no, I am so grateful to both of you guys for having me on. This has been so much fun. I said to Tracy earlier before we started, I get to geek out to Reiki like the next hour, and I'm so excited because I just love talking. I mean, I could talk about it all day and all night, right? It's just
Sure.
it's fascinating and it's fun and it's uplifting. So I hope people feel that after listening to this today.
Wonderful. So, as we finish off on our journey of our Ready, Set, Reiki, I pass it over to Millie, who ends up kind of walking us home. So, with her little tagline.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you, Ilana. It's wonderful, Tracy, for all of your hard work all the time, and for all of our listeners. I'm Millie Pampina, and I am the co-guide for Ready, Set, Reiki. And I always like to leave us with this thought of seeing beauty in everything is a choice. Please choose wisely. Thank you.
And I'm Tracy Searight, and you can find us at www.readysetreiki.com or on Facebook, on Instagram. So thank all of you, our listeners today. So have a wonderful day.